when I caught my ex-girlfriend cheating and how it led me to meet my wife. I remember the night like it was yesterday. The air was crisp, and the faint sound of traffic floated down the narrow streets as I walked home, exhausted after a long shift. All I could think about was seeing Sarah, holding her, and sharing a quiet Friday evening together. We had been dating for 3 years. To the rest of the world, we were the picture of a happy couple. We talked about getting engaged, about moving into a nicer place, about starting a family. But that night would shatter every illusion I had about what we were, and set the scene for a future I could never have imagined. Sarah's favorite takeaway was in the bag I carried, the faint smell of dumplings and noodles mixed with the misty air. In one hand, I held flowers, lilies, her favorite. The only thing brighter than the flowers was the smile I wore as I opened the door, hoping to surprise her. But what I found was a sound that felt like a knife twisting deep inside me. Not the sound of soft music or the sound of quiet conversation. No, this was a sound I can only describe as betrayal, the sound of my girlfriend with another man. I froze in the doorway. At first, I refused to comprehend what I was seeing. The flowers fell from my hands, and the takeaway tumbled to the floor. Suddenly, the room felt too small, too suffocating. The sound stopped, the bed stopped shaking, and for a moment, no one spoke. Sarah pulled the covers over herself as if that could somehow erase the scene. The man, someone I didn't recognize, glanced at me with a mixture of guilt and fear. My voice was shaking when I spoke, a voice I didn't recognize as my own. "I guess this is goodbye, then," I said quietly. Not angrily, not with a shout, just quietly. It felt like those words came from some deep place inside that refused to give in to despair. I turned, leaving the flowers, the takeaway, and the broken pieces of my heart right there. The door slammed behind me, and I stepped out into the mist. The sound of the city felt deafening. The world felt meaningless. For days, I wandered through life like a ghost. I crashed on a friend's couch, ignored phone calls, drank too much. Everywhere I went felt like a reminder of the life I thought I had. But in that quiet despair, somewhere deep down, a tiny ember refused to be extinguished. It whispered, "Maybe this is the end of one chapter, but the beginning of another." At first, I ignored it. What did I have left? A broken heart and nowhere to go. It was during those nights that I began focusing on myself. Not because I wanted to, but because I had no other choice. I started going to the gym. At first, it was to burn off anger, to tire myself out enough to fall into a dreamless sleep. But soon it became more than that. I started noticing changes, not just in my body but in my state of mind. The routine gave me a sense of control, a sense of belonging. Slowly I started reconnecting with friends I had lost touch with. I remembered passions I had abandoned for the sake of a relationship that no longer served me. About 3 months later, I was invited to a friend's party. At first, I refused. What was the point? The thought of making small talk felt like a chore. But my best friend insisted, and deep down I felt like maybe it was worth trying to step out into the world again. That party was where I met Anna. I remember the sound of her laugh over the music, the way she smiled when she introduced herself, the warmth in her voice that felt like a beacon of light in the fog of my heartbreak. We talked for hours that night, about music, about books, about moments when life felt too much, and moments when it felt like a gift. There was no pretense, no facade, just two people sharing stories and finding comfort in understanding. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. What started as a conversation became a friendship, and what started as a friendship became the kind of love that sneaks up quietly and reshapes your whole world. Anna taught me that love doesn't have to be loud or messy to be real. It can be a hand resting gently on your shoulder when you need it most. It can be a glance across a crowded room that reminds you you're not alone. Today, as I look at the picture of Anna and me, married, smiling, surrounded by friends and family, I realize how a moment of heartbreak became the foundation for the happiest chapter of my life. If I hadn't walked in that night, if I hadn't felt the sting of betrayal, I might never have met the person who became my best friend, my greatest love, and my wife. Life has a way of leading us down the right path, even when it feels like we're wandering in the dark. As the months passed after meeting her, Anna and I sank into a rhythm that felt natural and effortless. What started as long walks and late-night conversations became weekends spent cooking together, trips out of town to explore hidden gems, and quiet nights with a bottle of wine and a favorite movie. It felt as if every moment we shared built upon the one before, deepening a bond that felt both profound and remarkably serene. But like every story worth telling, ours was not without its moments of doubt and difficulty. Not because we didn't love each other, but because life itself has a way of challenging even the best of connections. About a year into our relationship, Anna was offered an amazing job opportunity in a city a few hours away. It was a role that promised growth, a chance for her to pursue a long-held dream. The news came one crisp evening as we sat on the porch of my tiny apartment, wrapped in a blanket, a cup of tea resting between her hands. "I don't know what to do," she said, voice shaking just slightly. "I want this job, but I don't want to lose us." I felt my heart sink. The thought of saying goodbye to Anna felt like a return to a loneliness I had worked so hard to overcome. Yet, as she spoke, I watched her eyes fill with a mixture of fear and hope. And in that moment, I knew that loving her meant supporting her, even if it meant making sacrifices of my own. "We'll make it work," I promised quietly. "Distance doesn't define a bond. We'll find a way." And we did. The following months tested the strength of that bond. There were long nights of video calls when work ran late, trips across highways to spend precious weekends together, and moments when silence felt louder than words. But every struggle deepened our understanding of one another. Every reunion felt like falling in love for the first time, reminding us why we chose this path together. Then came the moment when I truly knew Anna was the one I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. It was an ordinary afternoon, a quiet Saturday when we were strolling hand in hand through a bustling farmer's market. The sun was warm, and the air smelled of freshly baked bread and blooming flowers. As we stopped to pick out strawberries, I watched the way she smiled at the vendor, the way she waved to a little girl passing by, and the way she squeezed my hand as if to say, "I'm right here, always." In that moment, surrounded by noise and activity, everything felt still and certain. The thought came to me like a whisper from deep within. This is home. The decision to propose felt as natural as breathing. I didn't want a grand spectacle or a scene. Anna didn't need that, and neither did I. What I wanted was a moment that felt like us, quiet, honest, and profound. So, one evening, as the sun sank low in the sky and we watched the stars wink into being, I pulled a small velvet box from my jacket and sank to one knee. The world felt like it paused as I spoke, voice shaking, heart beating wildly. "I don't have all the words to tell you how much you mean to me," I said, "and I don't have all the promises for what the future might hold. But I do have this. I choose you. Every day. Will you choose me too?" Her voice was soft, choked with emotion when she said, "Yes." The months that followed were a whirlwind, Wedding preparations, moments with friends and family, late-night talks about the future. The morning of the wedding felt like a dream. The air was crisp and filled with the sound of quiet laughter, rustling silk, and friends exchanging hopeful glances. The venue was a rustic garden adorned with flowers, bathed in soft summer light. Everywhere I looked, I felt an overwhelming sense of belonging. Belonging to this moment, belonging to this chapter of life, belonging to Anna. I remember standing at the altar, hands shaking slightly, heart beating like a drum, as the music announced her arrival. Then I saw her, Anna, framed by the arch of blooming flowers, smiling in a way that felt brighter than the sun itself. As she stepped closer, I felt my breath leave my chest, not because of how beautiful she looked, and she was breathtaking, but because of the warmth and serenity that radiated from her. In that moment, I felt like the broken pieces of the man I used to be had been reshaped and molded into something whole, something stronger, something ready for a lifetime of loving and being loved. We exchanged vows that came from the depths of our hearts. Anna promised to walk beside me through moments of joy and moments of pain, to laugh with me and cry with me, and to always remember that every chapter we write together is worth telling. And I promised to be the same for her, to give her a safe harbor, to be the hand she can always hold, to nurture the flame of trust and belonging we had built from moments both quiet and profound. As the rings slipped onto our fingers, I felt the weight of that promise, not as a burden, but as a gift. The kiss that sealed our vows felt like the closing of one chapter and the unfurling of another. The sound of applause rose around us, and I pulled Anna closer, pressing my forehead to hers, whispering, "We made it. We're here." The honeymoon that followed was a quiet, beautiful adventure. We chose a small, secluded town by the sea, a place where days passed slowly, punctured by the sound of waves and the warmth of summer air. We wandered the cobblestone streets hand in hand, tried new foods, watched the stars twinkle over midnight waters, and spoke openly about the future, not as a destination we needed to race toward, but as a canvas upon which we could paint moments, memories, and milestones together. Then came the quiet beauty of everyday married life. The moments that might seem insignificant to others became sacred to us. Cooking together on a Sunday morning, sharing stories about the trials and victories of the day, and falling asleep in the comfort of knowing the person beside you chooses you, every night, every morning. Through it all, one thing became increasingly evident. This was not just a marriage of hearts, but a union of spirits. Anna and I had both emerged from moments of loss and despair, with a deeper understanding of ourselves. We knew that loving one another wasn't about finding someone to complete us, but about finding someone who inspired us to become more ourselves, someone who added color to the canvas we had already started to fill. As the years passed, our bond only grew stronger. We faced moments of challenge, family illnesses, changes in careers, moments where life felt uncertain. Yet those moments didn't break us. They shaped us. They reminded us why we had chosen each other and why we promised to keep choosing each other every day. We built a home that felt like a reflection of who we were as a couple. It wasn't about the walls or the roof. It was about the warmth and belonging that lived within it. Our friends came for dinner and left, with the feeling that this was a space of welcome, a space where conversations weren't just exchanged, but cherished. Our families came for holidays and celebrations, and together, we created new traditions that blended old stories with fresh beginnings. Through it all, I kept going back to that night when I walked away from betrayal. What felt like an ending became the very beginning I didn't know I needed. The sting of that heartbreak became the catalyst for rediscovering myself and making space for Anna, for a love that felt like home. Today, when I watch Anna across the room, brushing hair from her eyes, laughing at a joke, or simply looking up from a book to smile at me, I'm reminded of the quiet beauty of second chances. Not second chances with the same person, but second chances with life itself.